I first met Calith when she lay half-buried in the dust dunes of Anthus Prime. The twin suns were merciless that day, blazing down without pity on the endless sands. Our survey team had been combing the wastelands for lost tech from the precursor wars when I spotted the glint of armor beneath a collapsed ridge. I thought it might be salvage, until the armor shifted and a low, rattling breath escaped from underneath it. "Commander," called out, sliding down the slope. "We've got a survivor." By the time I reached her, the sand had stripped much of her equipment down to scorched fragments. Her face, barely shielded by a cracked visor, was an angular mask of alien beauty. Sharp cheekbones, shimmering violet skin, and thin, bloodied lips pressed together in a grimace of pain. Strange marks lined her arms. Tattoos, maybe, or scars, I couldn't tell. "Don't move," I said instinctively, though I doubted she understood English. Tapped my comms. "Medical evac now." She stirred, one hand twitching toward a weapon that wasn't there. Her eyes opened, blazing gold and filled with a fierce, wild hatred. Hatred and fear. I didn't blame her. Anthus Prime was no place to be found wounded and alone. When the medics came, she fought them at first. I had to stay by her side, speaking calmly, holding her hands down gently but firmly, promising over and over that we meant no harm. Only when she passed out from blood loss did her trembling finally stop. It was hours before I learned her name. It would be weeks before I learned the price she'd paid for surviving. Calith belonged to a species called the Vadrani, a race that prided itself on strength, dominance, and survival of the fittest. Weakness was not tolerated. Injury was considered an unforgivable failure. The moment a Vadrani was wounded beyond self-sufficiency, their society cast them out. "Exile is a mercy," Dr. Ames told me quietly, reading from one of the alien archives. "Most don't survive long after it. It's their way. A mercy." I looked through the medbay window at the woman who still snarled and fought even in her fevered dreams, the woman who had survived when everything around her said she shouldn't. If exile was mercy, it was a cruel one. Still, Calith healed faster than any human would have. She rebuilt her strength day by day, stubbornly refusing help when she could. Even when her wounds reopened and she collapsed during physical therapy, she would curse at the nurses, teeth bared, furious that her body had betrayed her. Everyone advised caution. Some even wanted her transferred to a secure off-world facility. For her own good, they claimed. But I couldn't bring myself to abandon her. Not when she was fighting so hard just to stay alive. Our first real conversation happened after she broke out of the medbay. I found her on the observation deck, crouched like a wounded animal against the window, staring out at the black tapestry of space. A small gash bled sluggishly along her forearm where she'd forced open a sealed hatch. "You should be resting," I said, stepping carefully into her line of sight. She turned sharply, body tensed for attack. Her golden eyes flared, but then something shifted in them. Recognition. Caution, but not immediate hostility. "You speak words," she rasped, her voice like the scraping of metal. I nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm Captain Elias Ward. You're safe here." She tilted her head, studying me like a hawk studies prey it doesn't understand yet. "Safe. Weak." "No," I said, smiling a little. "Not weak. Helping." Calith narrowed her eyes. For a long moment, I thought she'd lunge at me anyway. Instead, she sagged back against the wall, exhausted. "Vadrani do not accept help," she muttered bitterly. I sat down across from her, leaving space between us. Maybe it's time that changed. Her gaze flickered toward the stars. "Maybe. I am already dead. A living ghost." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just sat with her, watching the endless night beyond the glass, offering my presence as quietly and stubbornly as she'd clung to her life. It was a start. As the weeks turned into months, Caelith remained on the station. At first, she kept her distance, snarling at any perceived pity and refusing anything she saw as charity. But slowly, she began to engage. She started observing the cruise drills, criticizing our techniques in sharp, clipped tones. Eventually, she even offered to spar with some of the soldiers, testing herself, testing them, and testing me. It was during one of those training sessions that I realized I was falling for her. Caelith moved like a force of nature, every motion honed and lethal. She disarmed our best hand-to-hand fighter in seconds, flipping him onto the mat with a brutal efficiency that made the others step back instinctively. But when she turned to me, smirking slightly, challenging me with a tilt of her head, there was no cruelty in her gaze. Only a fierce, hungry spark. I stepped onto the mat without hesitation. She came at me hard, testing, probing, forcing me to adapt. I knew I couldn't beat her outright. She was faster, stronger. But I held my ground, using leverage and timing instead of brute strength. I took a few bruises, landed a few glancing strikes of my own. And when she finally pinned me, one knee pressed against my chest, we were both laughing breathlessly. Laughing. Caelith froze at the sound, as if stunned by it. Her hand hovered near my throat, but instead of striking, she pulled back. Help me up. Something shifted between us then. Something neither of us could deny. Of course, it wasn't that simple. The Vadrani delegation arrived 3 months later, an armored cruiser bristling with weapons, their ambassador cold and disdainful as he inspected Caelith. "You have no place among us," he told her in their harsh, guttural tongue, loud enough that the translation echoed through the briefing room. "You are a broken blade. A tarnished bloodline." Caelith said nothing, standing rigid at attention. But I saw her hands trembling at her sides. The ambassador turned to me. "We thank you for prolonging her agony. You may keep the cast-off human. She is yours by right of salvage." Salvage. The word burned in my ears. I saw Caelith flinch. I stepped forward before she could. "No," I said clearly. "She's not salvage. She's not property." The ambassador sneered. "You dare to lecture us on weakness." I didn't bother arguing. I just turned to Caelith and offered my hand. She stared at it for a long, agonizing moment. The whole room held its breath. And then, with slow, deliberate defiance, she placed her hand in mine. The ambassador spat some curse and stormed out. I didn't care. Neither did Caelith. That night, under the faint hum of the station's engines, she came to my quarters. Wordlessly, she pressed her forehead to mine, a gesture I'd come to recognize as deeply intimate among her kind, and whispered, "You chose me." "I did," I whispered back. "You will regret it." "I won't." She laughed then, a raw, ragged sound but real. And in that fragile moment, we both understood something simple and devastating. Love was the ultimate rebellion. Life after that wasn't easy. Caelith struggled with the instincts bred into her since birth. Pride warred with vulnerability. Trust battled suspicion. There were days she pushed me away, furious at herself for needing comfort, for wanting connection. There were nights she would wake up gasping, haunted by memories of battles she would never win. But we fought through it together.